welcome everybody to this episode of the Divine Council Worldview Podcast. We're your hosts, Mel and Rich, and joining us today will be Jeff Lees. But before that, I would like to say a thank you to those out there that have been praying for me. One, many of you have been praying for a while regarding my health and stuff like that, and I greatly appreciate it. But many of you have actually been praying for this prison ministry that I'm trying to get into. And I just wanted to share a little bit about my appreciation for those prayers and how it has gone. When I first signed up in the beginning of February, there was very little chance I would be able to go next week for 4 days to the prison. Like, a lot of things had to happen, and I didn't even think I was going to do it. I was going to go in the fall. And so I went to my first meeting to audit it, and there were 25 guys there that were going to go into the prison next week and do this work for 4 days. And there was only 4 people under the age of 60 in there. The rest were men who were 60, 70, and several 80-year-old men who go and spend this 4 days and do that. And I was just like, man, I better not be a wuss. I mean, like, if I can do this, I better go do this. And so, I just tried to rely on the Lord and have peace as I've went through. And I'll tell you, one, I have not had a ton of anxiety for all the things that I've had to do, which does happen when I have a lot of physical things that I have to attend and do. But I haven't had that. And I know that's because people are praying as well. I managed to get all these things done that I needed to, all the orientations, going to the prison and doing all those things like that, so that it finally just rests in the chaplain Tony's hands at the prison to let me in. Good thing I made a great first impression on him when I met him, but I thank you for that, because there is a 99% chance now that I'll get to go next week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, to the prison and minister to the people in there as well as to that. So I just wanted to say thank you, that your prayers really matter, and I could tell, and I'm really appreciative for that. So thank you very much. Now on to Jeff. How you doing today, brother? Tonight?
Oh, we're doing pretty good today, man. How are you all doing?
So good. What about you, Mel?
Good.
What's happening?
Hey, I made it here. I'm here late, but I'm here. Sorry.
It's all right.
It's not my.
We started only like 10 minutes after we normally would. All right, so we're just gonna dive right in here. Jeff, tell us about yourself. We want to hear it. Tell us about Jesus.
Hey, I'll tell anybody about Jesus. I love it. So the short version of it. So I grew up in a Christian home. My mom would drag my brother and I, like, kicking and screaming at church every Sunday. When we got into high school, I just kind of kicked the whole thing to the curb. I thought it was a waste of time. I didn't really believe it. I thought it was more boring than going through like a mythology class. It just wasn't interesting at all. And I kind of had my breakdown moment when I asked my youth minister, why was there so much evil in the world? And the answer he gave me was, we just have to have faith in Jesus to be able to get us through. And I'm like, that's not even an answer to my question.
It is. That's a lame answer. I gotta say,
it was awful.
Sorry. Yeah, it's horrible.
And so it was after
pastors do better.
Please, please. But no, so like, after that experience with him, I just, like I said, I was just done. I'm like, if you can't give me a straightforward answer, like, even if you say, I don't know, at least you're being honest. And so like, I just moved on from there. I said, none of this is real. None of this is worth my time. So I went to college. I went to a private art college, which, by the way, private art schools are not necessarily the best places to find Jesus. But he found me there.
Any liberal arts, like part is not,
But I say that, but like he like Jesus found me there. I met another guy there that he was a pastor of a church that it was a new startup church, like a new church plant. And he asked me like the C.S. Lewis questions of like, can you tell me if Jesus was a historical person? And then from there, like, can you tell me if you believe that God exists or not? And then he asked me the question of like, is Jesus telling the truth? Like, did he believe who he was, or is he lying, or is he a lunatic? And so like we broke this stuff down, and I remember like he was so patient with me. I'm the kind of guy that I'm going to research everything that I possibly can because I want to one up you in an argument. And so it's every time I would do a little bit of research, he would come back with a question. Like he did the Jesus model. Like every time I would push back, he would answer my pushback with a question. And it drove me bonkers, but it was one of those, like, it helped me like redefine how I was finding and researching information. And so at the end of my freshman year of college is one of those, I came to the conclusion that God is real. I don't know if I can say that it's this Yahweh or not, but God is very clearly real. I can't deny this anymore. And so that launched me onto this path of like, if God is real, then I need to be doing something different with my life. I need to be going somewhere else than what I'm doing. So I finished out college. I did graduate. But it was one of those, like, this churning, nagging feeling of like, you got to do more. And so I got into youth ministry. I became a youth minister, a full-time youth minister. And I was in that for, man, like 5 or 6 years. And I had a high school student come to me. Like she was one of my favorite students because she asked the hardest questions, man. But she came to me and like, she just walked in my office one day and she's like, hey, some of us want to do like a study on angels and demons. Like, can we do that? And I remember saying, I told her, I'm like, I would love to. I don't know that there's a whole lot of information that we can like put together an entire series about it. But I'm like, give me like 2 good weeks to do some research and some digging, and we'll see if we can't like do like 2 Sunday nights or something, like just enough to kind of get you curious and answer whatever questions you have, even though I have a feeling it's going to be, I don't know. We'll find out when we get to heaven kind of response, which, by the way, is still another terrible response that youth ministers give on a regular basis. And so like I dove in. I'm like, I've got to find some stuff that's not Catholic tradition. I've got to find something else to kind of put these lessons together. And I typed into Google one day, just like podcasts that are talking about angels and demons. And I stumbled across it was another podcast. It was a Messianic Jew that had Dr. Heiser on. And I remember listening to this and I'm like, it's either this man is insane or he's got something that I've never heard before. Yeah. I need to figure out who this guy was. Like, I needed to figure out who Heiser was. I was captivated by this stuff. And it was a phrase that he used in that interview that it completely just wrecked me. And it was the idea that when we use the word God, we assume a certain set of attributes, and that wrecked my worldview at that point, where I'm like, then he goes into the idea of like how the ancient Jewish people, the ancient Israelites and Hebrews, like they would use this word Elohim, and what it meant to them is not what it means to us. And like, it changed everything for me. And so as I went out and I bought every book that Heiser either recommended or he wrote himself, and I read everything that I could. And so like I was able to put together a cohesive lesson for these high schoolers. And man, they ate it up. Like they were just as enthralled as I was. Mm-hmm. They're like, we've never heard this before. Like we've been in church our entire lives and like we've not heard any of this. And I'm like, me either. This is awesome. Yeah. This is great stuff.
And what year is this? What year was this that this was?
This would have been about 2015, 2016.
And so these would have been like people born like 2000, right? Straight up
yes.
raised with Harry Potter, with Marvels, with all
yes.
these supernatural ideas and things like that, though. But when they go to school, they're taught about evolution or something like that.
Yes.
Times.
Or like, so yeah, it's like evolution is in this like category over here, but then like mysticism, mythologies, and religions are over here. They're in this category. You don't really need to listen to them, but you need to listen to the sciences over here. And it's like, that's like what they were put into, especially like where I live. It's Hickville out here, man. So we're we're probably lucky that we have people even teaching evolution. That's kind of where we are. But so we had this conversation. We put this lesson together. The kids are loving it. Like the kids are going to and they're telling their friends, like, we're finding this stuff out. This is awesome stuff. So like the youth group started to grow, which was awesome. Like more kids were coming in. Like we were teaching. The kids were getting excited about it. And it's like, man, this is how it's supposed to work. Like this is awesome. So the church I was working at, the senior minister had told my wife and I that on Sunday mornings, he didn't want us teaching. He wanted us in a class to where we could be fed, which I'm like, that's fine. That's great. So we got involved in like a young adults class. Most of the people in there were parents of the kids in the youth group. So I kind of had one of those, like, I need to sit here and probably be quiet so I don't make any of them mad. And so one day we watched this video, and it was one of the, like creation videos that it's the literal interpretation kind of videos, which, believe what you want about it. I'm not going to argue about it. But there was
You're talking about the ham videos, right?
It was a kind of ham video. I didn't know if I could say his name or not.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. But there's the greatest video in the world. Go Google Ken Ham at ETS with Mike Heiser. Just go YouTube that. But anyway,
I'm going to find that one. I need to see that one.
One of my favorite things.
But so he makes this statement in this video that if you don't believe in a literal 7 days of creation, that is an atheistic point of view and it undermines the authority of God. I will never forget that line. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I've read enough. Like I've read enough people, like different authors of different backgrounds. Like I read Joshua Swamidass, like his genealogical Adam. Like I read that one. I'm like, this dude's a hardcore Jesus follower,
and pretty convincing
too. You can't tell me that this dude has an atheistic point of view.
Yeah. He's got a pretty good theory there, I will say.
And so I'm sitting there like I tried to bite my tongue and I raised my hand and my wife is like pulling on my arm, like, no, shut up, shut up. And I'm like, I completely disagree with that. Like, I disagree with that mentality. So apparently by me saying that I disagree with Ken Ham in this traditional church setting was like, that was the faux pas.
Heresy, man. Heresy, bro.
Yeah. So it was one of those that it was a couple of weeks later, I got pulled into a leaders meeting. They're asking me what I'm teaching. And so I introduced them to the Divine Council Worldview content. And that was just like, they started thinking I was a polytheist. Like they were saying all kinds. And I'm like, you guys are missing the big picture. You're missing all of this. And so they shortly after that asked me to leave. And then so my wife and I went back to the church that we started at, and I started teaching in there as a volunteer youth minister. We were in there for another 5 years or so. But it's like, I was teaching the Divine Council Worldview. I was still teaching that at that church, and they all loved it. I'm like, what is the difference here, guys? Come on. But yeah, so like we were doing that. And then it just came to a point of like, I need to figure out what God is wanting me to do. Cause I don't think it's full-time ministry, at least not within a church setting. Mm-hmm. So what does ministry look like for an artist? That was the question that I had to wrestle with. Like, I'm an artist, like through and through. I'm a little weird. I'm extroverted. I'm like, my heart is art. It's Jesus and art. Like, that's it. Like, what do I do with this? So I ended up getting a job at a toy company. I was working in their prototyping department.
That's awesome. How do you get a job like that?
You got some contacts. I've got friends that work in the game industry. I've got friends that work at Disney. I've got, some of the big AAA games that are out there. I've got buddies that have worked on those. That's cool. So it's a matter of like, I've just kept in contact with some of those guys. One of them just happened to have a contact for it was 30 minutes away from my house, but it was a guy that's, the prototyping department for this toy company was 30 minutes away. And so my friend's like, hey, I know the guy that runs the shop, give him a call, see if he still needs help. So I'm like, dude, I'm willing to do anything at this point. I want to be an artist. Like I want to be a Christian. I want to be a follower of Jesus, but I want to do art. So whatever I have to do here, let's do it. So I go for an interview for that job. And Rich, I'm sure you can understand this. Like that interview turned into like a 2-hour conversation. And so the guy that owned the shop, he's just like, clearly your personality, you will mesh really well with everybody else in here. So let's bring you in for a skills test. We'll take like 4 days to do a skills test. See if you can actually do what you say you can do. We got 2 days into that skill test, and he's like, there's no reason for you to keep doing it. You're clearly good enough. How about you just start Friday? I'm like, done. Let's just start. Let's go. So that introduced me to the whole world of like making toys, which I never knew I had a passion for until I actually did it. I left that job and started my own toy company. I started my own. I'm like, I've got some really cool ideas. I've got some things that I think could really, make waves within the toy industry. And Heiser's work is honestly what kind of spearheaded me into that realm, into making, I'll say like Christian-based toys, but we're not making the white European Jesus. I'll say that. So yeah, that's kind of where we are now and what I'm doing now.
All right. So what kind of a vein of Christianity were you in? You know what I mean? Was it charismatic? I mean, where were you at when you heard Heiser's that actually allowed you to kind of?
I would say it was very traditional Protestant. We're talking like you're one step away from being full blown like Baptist church down the road. Yeah, it was a very, very traditional church, very traditional Protestant, like non-denominational church. Yeah, the idea of speaking in tongues would have just like people would crawl under the pews if you started talking about
run
that.
Away.
Yes.
Run away.
That was very much the church that I was involved in. All
right, and so how have you you and your family are into missions somewhat, right? I mean, you were at that man, I'm so sad I didn't get to go to that one in Kentucky in Lexington.
ICOM, International Conference on Missions. Yes.
Yeah. That was just in like November, or what was it? October?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, tell me something about that. Tell me about what you doing that. Like, why'd you go?
Sure. The big thing is like we have family and friends that go to these conferences, these missions conferences. My wife grew up in Venezuela. She was born in Kentucky. When she was 2 weeks old, her family went to Costa Rica for intensive language training. And then when she was like 2 years old, somewhere around there, they moved into Venezuela. They were in Venezuela. Like my wife grew up there. She spent 18 years in Venezuela, doing mission work. Like that was her world. And so ICOM, or International Conference on Missions, was one of the big things that they went to, or they tried to get to every year, or at least sent like some kind of representative to it. So ICOM is there are people from all over the world that come to this big missions conference. Like it is literally from across the world, like people from China and Japan, from Morocco and Spain. Like it's everywhere you can think of, man. It's a huge gathering, but these people are all coming together, as the body of Christ, and then talking about what they're doing and what they're seeing and the things that are working versus the things that aren't working, or breakthroughs that they've seen, or the miraculous things that they've seen. So it's just this big gathering of missionaries talking about what they've seen in the field.
Yeah, how many people you think attended that? Just
oh man, so over 2 days, I mean, there was easily 500 people that came through that place.
Yeah.
Like pretty man, easily 500.
Yeah, that was like what the fun I thought I would have. I was like, if there's like, several hundred people there, I'm going to find one or two that are going to be a great time. Were you able to converse with anyone about like Mike's work or anything like that?
Yeah, I everywhere I go, I try. So even within this place, so there was one woman that I got to talk to. So they have like these like classes and like breakout sessions that you can go to. In one of these classes, they were talking about it was a tribe in like southern Tibet or somewhere around in there. That there was they were talking about some of the outreach they're trying to do with the people in that region. And one of the women that were on the panel, she started talking about how in her tribe and her people that she's with, like whenever there was something bad going on, they always had to go to like that it was like the spirit talker, or like I can't remember the word that she used. But yeah, it's like kind of like the witch doctor, more or less. Yeah. and I'm sitting like listening to this, and I'm like, this is their divine council stuff. This is exactly what we're talking about. So I'm like fascinated by what she's saying. And so it was after that there was somebody else that was kind of talking to her, and she was like, how do you have like conversations with spirits? Like, why are you going to this witch doctor? Like the spirits aren't going to be talking to you. Like, this is all fake. And I remember like I stood there and I'm again biting my tongue, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have to say something. And so I very gently, I'm like, there's an entire scholarship that talks about the spirits that have been here since the beginning of time, and how we are able to contact and talk with those spirits, and how God says, don't do that. And my pushback for what you're saying is, when you look at the very first commandment out of the 10 commandments that are written in Exodus, what is the very first commandment?
Thou shalt have no other gods.
You don't have any other gods before me. So I'm like, if the gods and the spirits don't exist, why did God give them a commandment to not have other gods or spirits before him? Mm-hmm. And it's like, again, like you shot the sacred cow in the moment. Like she stood there and she's like, well, that just means that you're not supposed to worship. Like you're not supposed to like worship anything before God. I said, no, that's what they're talking about with the idols.
Yeah, I was like, that's the second.
Right. And I'm like, that's not it. It's, you are to have no other gods before me, and then don't make idols. Like those are two different commandments. Those are two different things. Right. And it was just, again, that conversation of like, helping kind of break down like some of the traditional mindset that we have, that we've grown up with, that, you know, I take these opportunities like anytime I can, that it's like if our tradition outweighs our doctrine, we have a problem. Mm-hmm. Like I truly believe that if our traditions are outweighing our doctrine,
that's so difficult in a lot of churches, because like just for people, like religion becomes tradition. It's just like you do it so much, you do it so routinely that it just like subconsciously it just becomes tradition. Like it's boiling the frog slowly in the religious sense.
Yes. And so like this is one thing. So my father-in-law has now, he and his wife have come back to the States, and he is the lead pastor at the church that we now attend. And one thing that he has brought to the table is this idea of like, we have a whole lot of traditions in this church. And what I want to start asking is like, why are we doing this tradition? Are we doing it just because this is the way we've always done it? Or are we doing this to bring Jesus to the people? If we're doing this tradition just because this is how we've always done it, let's reevaluate this. Let's see if it's actually necessary. But then if it's actually bringing people close to Jesus, let's keep doing that, and let's actually embolden that, and let's move forward with it. Yeah. So like I have so much respect for my father-in-law, that's especially awesome. When he's like bringing this kind of stuff to a traditional setting. Good
for you. And
he's saying like, hey, let's kick the tradition to the curb if it's not actually needed.
That takes a lot of courage. I admire that.
Yeah.
What did your wife first think when you brought her Heiser's work? That's always the fun.
So like she's on board with it. She is not one to go out and have conversations like I do. She is definitely more like the one-on-one type of conversations. So as excited as I get about it, she's like 10 steps the other direction. But as far as like her belief in it, she believes it. Yeah. She doesn't know how to articulate it as well as some of us can, but she believes it. Now, when I first started talking about it, it was like what Dr. Heiser would always say about like people look at me like I have two heads all the time. So again, I'm a night owl, and so 2:00 in the morning is kind of like my prime time to get work done. And I would always like, my wife and I would always go to bed. Like we'd be like, 9:30, 10 o'clock. Like she's in bed, like winding down to go to sleep. And I would have just read a chapter out of Unseen Realm. And I'm like, hey, I've got to read you this thing. And she's like, I am trying to go to sleep.
Leave me alone.
Please stop. But it was always like 11 o'clock at night. I'm having these like moments of, oh, that's what that like, Heiser's talking about this. So like, I have to talk to somebody about it. I'm excited. I have to talk. And she's over there like half asleep. I'm like, wake up. wake up. I got to share this. I got to talk with somebody. And it's one of those, like, I hear you, just let me go to sleep.
Yeah.
But again, like that was kind of the introduction of it to her was you're not a heretic by any means, but you're venturing way outside of the comfort zone is kind of where she was to begin with. It's all this is, it's very different. Even for someone that grew up in like the missionary mindset, this is still pretty different. It's not a complete punt from what she grew up with, but it's that, I guess the analogy that Dr. Heiser always uses that when you read the Lord of the Rings, you know, I guess it's him and Louis Marcos, that he said, you know, when you read the Lord of the Rings, it's an amazing story. When you watch the movie, it's still a really cool story, but the book just gives you that little more information. But if you read the Silmarillion,
that's right,
and then you go back and read the book, now it takes on a whole different light. None of the story changes, none of the narrative changes. But now you have context upon context for this stuff. And so then that's the level that I was getting to. And I'm like, but if you get this, all of this other weird stuff now makes sense.
I think that's the big thing for a lot of people. You hit on two good points. Is number one is a lot of us have like disparate data points floating around in our head. Like just little, like, you know, Bible stories and narratives and points and theology points and stuff like that. And when someone comes along and just kind of goes tick, 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 and just kind of like shows you these are not unrelated data points. There is like a spider web through them. It's like, it's mind blowing. And then the other thing you said that like is a big deal to me that I've struggled with for a long time is like, I would try and figure out how, like, kind of like your wife, like, how do I like coherently articulate this idea to people and not sound crazy? Like I've got two heads. But the thing I've kind of come to realize is like, there's easily over 24 different ways, you know, to start. It's like, where in the story do you start? Like what matters to this person that I'm talking to? Because if I start at the same entry point, it's not going to work every time. And so it's just like, it's just one of those things you have to get into and you have to learn it really, really well. So you can drop in at any point in that data structure we talked about, all those data points, and you can start pivoting off of every single data point in a manner that kind of like is coherent to that person, but it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time. Like you, it takes a lot of like talks with your wife at 11 p.m. and 2 a.m.
Right.
You know?
Yep. So and we have those talks too. So it's she hasn't left me yet. So.
And one of those, you know what I mean, regarding Tolkien, when you listen to just the beginning of the Silmarillion, it is one of the most epic things you'll ever hear if you understand the Divine Council worldview. It opens up that world into a way. Tolkien got it, man. That's like, it is so amazing. Last year, actually, when I saw Mel when we were back in, we were up in Maryland visiting our family. I was talking to my brother-in-law, who I've talked to for many years about this stuff and things like that. Incredibly intelligent guy, likes to take, you know, the time to process, will not immediately be got to anything. But like finally that night he was like starting to, and the next morning he woke up and he said the first thought that he had was, he's a big Tolkien guy. He said that Tolkien was right. That was his first thought after like Mike's work like made its impact. He said the first thing I thought in the morning was Tolkien was right. And it just blew his mind, you know, about that. It's incredible, you know? All right. So we were talking about, you know what I mean, like that spider web and that data thread. You know, we've talked a few times about how you've gone about sharing with people and the things that you've done. Like one of those is like, you know, you asked a guy about the Nakash, right? What, you know, you know, share some of those. Like people like to hear how this goes about, you know, or some of the stories on that.
So the guy that you're talking about, he's a good friend of mine, but he's an older gentleman and is kind of set in his ways, which again, the dude loves Jesus. And so I have no beef with him.
Yeah, 100%.
But one day, so he and his wife teach a class that is kind of like just a basic understanding of the views of the church that we attend, and kind of like it's a what we believe kind of class. And so my wife and I went into that class. We were invited in there to just kind of, it's like, you guys have been in it for so long, but just kind of go in and like just see if it's a good fit. To just partake in the class. And so one of the first classes, he was talking about just the creation account, and how he was emphasizing the idea that, that Eve was talking to a snake, that there were the potential that animals talked back then. And he was also talking about how even like lions, the carnivorous animals that we know today, were eating plants. Like there was no death or anything like this. And I'm like, there are a lot of really new Christians in this class, so I'm not going to say a word. I'm not, because that's the worst thing that I could do is open this up and just destroy somebody else's, their walk so far. Like, just wreck everything that they've built so far. I'm like, I'm not going to say anything in the class. I'm going to wait until afterwards. I'm going to have a conversation with this guy, because I think there's so much more to this story, and taking it as a literal sense. Like, if you want to teach that, that's fine. But in my opinion and how I would teach it is there is this perspective, but there is also this perspective, and they're not in conflict with each other, but it's a different way of interpreting this story. There's a different way to see this. And so I walked up to him afterwards, and I asked him, I said, do you truly think that Eve was talking to a snake, and she and this snake were having a conversation? He says, yes, I believe that. I said, okay. Can I ask you, like, how familiar are you with the Hebrew words that are used throughout Genesis? And he said, he's like, I've not studied the Hebrew. I said, okay, so can I just share with you like what the serpent is called in Hebrew? He's like, yeah, sure. I said, so it's Nakash. Nakash has two definitions to it. It's a double meaning. And so it's the serpent, or a serpent, but it also has the second meaning of the shining one. And he sat there and he's like, really? Like that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, but that's what the word is. It's Nakash in this double meaning. I said, so knowing that, and knowing that further on in the Bible, it talks about how Satan masquerades as an angel of light, isn't it possible that this isn't a serpent, but Moses, who probably wrote this account, is saying like, hey, this thing is dangerous. We're trying to share this story and say like, this is a bad guy, if you will. And so he's using the imagery that all the people are going to be familiar with. I said, not to mention, like, why didn't Eve, which, you talk about how obviously you think other animals could talk in the garden. Like, if she's talking to a snake and the snake is talking back, why isn't she freaking out? And that's the idea, well, there's the possibility that she was talking to other animals. I said, but that's an argument of silence. Like, we don't really have that anywhere else. Yeah, if you want to talk about Balaam's donkey further on, that's again a supernatural agent interfering into something. And so I'm like, I kind of like kept going with this idea. I'm like, so it's just this understanding of like, if Adam and Eve are living in the divine abode of Yahweh, like they are walking with Yahweh, they're in his presence, there are clearly other supernatural agents that are in this place as well. We have that with Nakash. We see that. So is it a possibility that she was familiar with this thing and then it twisted one day? I said, that makes more sense in the grand scheme of the narrative than we have this one blip of a talking animal. Like, and again, I'm not trying to change your mind or anything. I'm just trying to maybe give you another perspective to potentially talk about. And again, he kind of sat there like kind of, stuck in tradition a little bit, but it's that idea of, well, this is what I've always been taught. This is what I believe. Yeah. Like, I want to read it in that literalistic way. And it's like, but there are other ways to read this data. There are other ways to see this. And again, like, and Dr. Heiser talked about this so often. He's like, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm not trying to hurt your belief, your theology. I'm not trying to hurt you at all. Like, none of this is going to hurt you. But it's a different way of seeing this information that completes the story. And it's like, can we have this conversation? And so often I kind of get well, you believe what you want to believe, and I'll believe what I want to believe. And it's like,
well,
but
really?
you're not, your story and your narrative that you're following is incomplete.
Yeah.
And I want to help you see the completion of that, because the narrative of Scripture is so beautiful when you get the full spectrum of this.
I think it's a really, and this is a thing that you kind of see a lot in evangelical circles, is that, and I've kind of been there myself in the past, is that you think you're not a very dedicated Christian if you don't hold a literal view. And they use that word a lot, a literal view. And I think Mike was probably the one, maybe I'd heard before, I'm not sure. It's like, let's change that word from literal to serious. I take the Bible seriously.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's probably a better way. And people just think I must take it literally. And like, I think one of the things that Mike said is like, it's not, the Bible's not a science book. It's not a book on zoology. And sometimes like you should read it like a novel. The authors are doing something. They're dropping down clues. They're trying to give you some imagery. I mean, we still use the same phrase today, probably from Genesis. Like, man, that guy's sly as a snake. It's like, we don't mean that he's literally slithery, like a long, invertebrate. We mean that he is, devious and deceptive, That's what we're talking about. And it's like, could it not mean the same? I mean, that's probably where we got the saying from, is to say it's deceptive, it's devious. And it's really hard. I think it's really hard to peel people off of that view, because I think if I don't think literally about the Bible, that must mean I'm not a good Christian.
Right.
And you're making some really good points about, there are other ways to view this. And quite frankly, they're much more, they do the story better. It really like, and yeah, I kind of feel sorry. And here's the thing. I know he's doing his best. I know his heart is in the right place. I mean, absolutely, he wants to, like, he deeply believes in this, but it's at the same time, I kind of feel bad for the new Christians that are kind of getting this and like, man, so I got to believe this now. It's like, it's really difficult,
Right.
Yeah, and it's amazing actually the change that has occurred in the past, 20 or so years, because you would have been labeled a heretic for not agreeing with most of that stuff.
Right.
As well as the rapture and all of those kinds of things. And I'm not going to bag anyone that believes any of that, but I don't want to be bagged on and told I'm not saved and I'm not a Christian and, those kinds of things, because I don't believe in that. Which that's where it was at. But all of a sudden we find ourselves now in 2025 and the things have definitely turned, where more of these conversations can be had without people immediately just crushing, just shutting down or calling you a heretic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, is there any other things that you've shared, or conversations that you have that you want to share? Because one of the things that we do on here is try to talk about how we talk to people about these things, the interactions that we get in, and how it helps us understand it.
Yeah. I like I said before, this is something that I've been excited about since 2016. Like when I really kind of just stumbled onto Heiser's work. This is one of those. So I have kind of I'll say it's a pride point with me. I try to go every week to have at least 3 Jesus conversations with somebody, whether that's a complete stranger or somebody that I work with, or with my kids, my wife, like whatever it is. But I strive to have those deep conversations at least 3 times a week. So I mean, do the math in that. That's a whole lot of people that I've shared a lot of stuff with. But it's more of when I get the opportunity to share the Divine Council Worldview, it's with other Christians. It's with people that have been in it for a while. Every now and then it'll be like a conversation I have with someone that's like someone's coming from like a Muslim background that's they're talking about we believe in the same God, and I'm like, oh no, but can I help kind of unpack the idea of the gods? Can I tell you where I think this idea has come from? There have been multiple people. So we live, maybe about 5 minutes away from a Mormon temple. I've had all sorts of wonderful conversations with Mormons. Like we've got a pretty good little group of them out here. I've worked with one of them at the toy company that I worked for. He and I had a lot of really great conversations that revolved around the idea of the gods. And again, it's one of these, like what he was taught in this traditional mindset within the Mormon church. It's one of those, like, we look back, like, what is the actual meaning of the gods? Like, what did the Bible itself mean? Which then he would always come back with, like, well, we don't really like go with the Bible. We go with like the new material, which is my pushback. Is always like, this is your source material, though. It's like Joseph Smith is writing this pulling from the Bible. So if you're going to read his content, you should probably look at where he's coming from. And so if that's the case, then they're like, okay, so let's look at the reference material. And so like talking with Mormons has been very fun, very different with this kind of perspective.
It is actually really fun to do.
Lot of people. What was that?
Yeah. I said, it's really fun to talk to the Mormons. Like when they come and knock on my door, like I know they get credit if I invite them to dinner. So I'm like, hey, you guys come over for dinner. You guys will get credit and we'll hang out. And so, they're very open. I have these two young guys here and I was like, hey, you guys want to hear a story? And they're like, yeah. So I shared my testimony with them. And about the end, one of the guys goes, he's all, for a minute there, man, I thought you were going to kill us. My wife is sitting there dying. They're like, oh man. But you do have those good conversations. And if you're not going to condemn them, but are willing to engage them and see that they are made in the image of God, they just may have been, they got stuck in that, river of Mormonism, however that works, then you can have these conversations and people are very willing to talk about these things. Yeah. They enjoy these things. Everybody thinks, so many people think supernaturally now.
Right. And Mel, you had asked, like right before we started recording, what was like an epiphany moment that I had. Rich, you bringing up the idea of like, being an image bearer of God, how Dr. Heiser talked about what it meant to be made in the image of God. Mm-hmm. That conversation that he had on his, the Naked Bible podcast, that episode, I think I listened to that episode by itself at least 20 times. How he brought that idea together of that simple word of, like, what does it mean to be made in the image of God? Mm-hmm. Like, or I guess it was sorry, mm-hmm. It was made in the image of God. And it's so the context of that. And it's that, like, that whole conversation again was like, now it makes sense. Because it was one of those, like, being brought up, we were told it was, it's, you have a physical body, a spiritual body, and then a soul that goes on, or, it's the body, mind, and soul kind of thing. And it's like, okay, no, I guess that makes sense. It's 3 parts, triune God. Okay, that makes sense. But how Dr. Heiser put those things together is like, no, this is something like, you can't lose this. Like, no matter who you are, what state of mind you're in, like, this is not something that goes away. Like, this is who you are. Mm-hmm. And so that again, just re-emphasized to me, like, everybody has this intrinsic value. Yeah. That, like, everybody's equal. Everybody, like, no matter if you're in a coma, no matter if, you've got some mental disabilities or physical disability, like,
or if you're in prison.
Or you're in prison. Exactly. It's like, you have value and God sees you just like that. It's like, you are made in his image. And that means, like, we are his image bearers here. Mm-hmm. All of us are. And so it's that everybody has value when you see it that way. Yeah. And again, that just blew my mind when I finally connected those dots.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree with you. That blew my mind too. Cause, like, I think we know, like, all humans intrinsically have value, but I think sometimes maybe maybe subconsciously in Christendom, we kind of think, oh, you're a believer and you're not. Like, you have not chosen. And so, and it's not that you're less important. It's just kind of like you're outside of the circle, so to speak. I'm articulating that bad, but
there are many people that believed. I remember sitting in a coffee shop with a guy recently, great dude, loved him, but he's like, what do you see when you look around here? And I was like, the image of God. And he's like, I see enemies. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, okay. I was like, no, but, and then I was like, you don't see this is the image of God. And he says, I don't believe they have the image of God until they get saved or until the Spirit comes. And I was like,
yep.
I was like, okay, and take a breath,
That's and the thing is like, I think that is kind of like a subconscious, set of logic that modern Christians go through. It's like, you don't bear the image of God until you come to believe.
That's right.
And it's like, no one's really taught that, but it's just like, I think that's kind of what the logic our brain follows just intrinsically. Right. But when he kind of broke that down and said, no, they're all imagers. They are all imagers. And I was like, oh my gosh. And, when he's kind of talking about the divine, like, Edenic mission, we're like, that is still the primary mission. And everybody is to march creation towards Eden. And the funny thing is they're doing it in a lot of cases, whether they are believers or not. Like, as humans, we just intrinsically are out there trying to establish order in the midst of chaos. We're building buildings, we're building cities, we're taking dirt and we're forming houses. And like, we're taking what was nothing and we're making something of it. It's like part of the coding of who we are. And so when like he put all that together, I was like, this is so much bigger and so much more important than I previously thought. I'm just like, absolutely. I'm just humbled every time.
It's like one of the pillars of like all of it.
Yeah, it's a pillar. It
is one of the pillars.
It's critical. Which is why it's like they're an ambassador, but they may not know it yet.
Yeah. So another point that you hit on that, oddly enough, like you ask, a modern day, traditional Protestant Christian, what is heaven? Right? What is heaven? And you get that the different options or the different ideas, like, well, it's the paradise that we go to. It's like, okay, so describe it to me. What is it? And nobody has really, at least the people that I've talked to, like, none of them have really connected the dots that it is the Edenic vision. It's that this is always, like, God has never had a plan B. It's been Eden. It's always been Eden. That's where we started, and that's where we're going back to. Like, so this idea, like paradise, we will be back in Eden. We will be back in God's divine abode with him and the other Elohim that are there. Like, it's just going to be Eden again, but it's going to be so much better than what it was. And so, but again, like, you connect those dots for people are like, oh, that's what the new heaven and new earth is. Like, yes, it's that they're connected again. And we're back in this place. We're back in this place where God wanted us to be in the first place. Mm-hmm. And
walking with him humbly, in a garden,
So again, it's that idea of like, it's always been like, and I've heard it preached, like, plan A was Eden, plan A didn't work out, so God moved to plan B, which he always knew he was going to need a plan B, so we had it. And it's like, okay,
still plan A,
right? And and I sit there and I'm like, I get that, but I understand where you're coming from, but that's not it.
Yeah, and it also kind of like insinuates that God is stupid. It's like, right, you fooled me. I just didn't know you would do that. Shucks.
Right. Or this idea of like, this idea of like, put these humans here. They may or may not fail. We'll see what happens. And if they do fail, I've got this other plan over here. We've got a counter option in case they screw up. We can do this. Like, you're talking about an omniscient God who is sovereign. Like, you're not surprising him. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it's this idea of like, no, there is no plan B. It's God's plan of Eden. It's where we started. It's where we're going back to. Mm-hmm. And it's, again, you connect those dots for people and it's all of a sudden like their eyes open up. Like, that's the new heaven and new earth. That makes complete sense.
And like one of those places of those dots that we've always found to be incredibly useful is, Babel and Pentecost. You know, those two right there, like really, man, they connect those two right there.
When you can connect that, when you can connect the confusion of the languages and the focus on just Abram and the family of him, of Israel, and then the unconfusion of the languages. And now it's like, go into all the world. The whole world is mine.
Right.
And preach the gospel.
You know, like, and back to the idea of the image and why people view it is because they view children and people who are born as totally depraved, evil, and wicked above all things. So how can they look at that thing as an imager, as something, you know, made in the image of God, the holy, great, mighty God? And they view that. So that's very difficult for them to, you know what I mean, look at that person like that, because all they see is that darkness, you know?
Right.
All right. What are the questions we got here, Mel?
Well, so you're developing you have a kind of a mission of doing some toys based on the Divine Council. So we want to hear something about this because it sounds pretty cool.
So definitely. So I launched into this whole toy thing, like I mentioned before. And I started doing some research. Again, the amount of time I spend in doing research. So I started doing like, no, who out there is doing Christian toys? Because it might be one of those, like, I could get hired onto one of these companies, you know, and start kind of working through them. Like, it took me about a week to discover that there's nobody making Christian toys except for the company that makes like the little people, like the toddler toys.
Yeah.
That's like the only company out there that is making anything even remotely Christian. And I thought, like, that seems like that's wrong. There's such a vastness, like just within scripture itself, there's so much there that we can do and make it look really cool. Like, why do we keep seeing toys pop up, or like the little people toys? Like, we keep seeing images of like David as like a 7-year-old boy. Like, we can do better than this. Like, as an artist, I'm like, we can do better than this. Like Goliath always looks like he's something out of like the Persian Empire. Like, again, like, we can do better than this, guys. Like, again, as an artist, we know how to make stuff look cool. This isn't it. This is not what we're doing. And so, I started like launching into this, like, all right, so what do we do? What are we going to make? And so I started going back through like the Divine Council stuff. Like, there's something here. Like, there has to be a reason that God has, he's stirred me so much with this content and given me this ability to create, that there has to be something here. And so it seriously like came to me one night. I'm like, we can do Divine Council figures. Like, we can make a Jesus figure and we can make him look really, really cool. And then we can also do, like, we can do Michael. And you know what? Let's make it even more fun. Let's go with like the Hebrew translation of Michael and do Michael. And then we also do Yeshua. Instead of doing Jesus, let's do Yeshua. So and then we do like Gavriel, and some of these other like Samael and Azrael. Like, we can do some of these more Hebrew type names, and like, let's just do the gods. Let's make them. But then, like, we're going to make them, but we're also going to tell the story of like, these gods are lesser than Yeshua. Yeshua is the king. He is above them all. Like, this is the story that we're going to tell.
That's cool.
Like, we're going to make these guys look cool. Like, these dudes they're not your typical, like, if we get around to like making Thor and Odin, this is not your Marvel Odin and Thor. Like, those dudes are pretty cool looking. But man, like, we're going to do something it completely takes it into a different realm.
So what's your idea? Are you going to have like a trading card that comes with it that kind of gives like the backstory? Like, this is who this is. This is, I don't know.
So we've played with the idea, and right now we're kind of pricing out the different options. Cause again, we're going to have to launch a Kickstarter to get this first round funded. But so we've kicked around the idea of doing trading cards for each one of these to unpack like who they are. Like, within the Divine Council, who is this character? So it's either we do cards, or there is the possibility of doing like comic books. And within the comic books, we can make the comics a little bit shorter, like a 5 to 6 page, just small book that they all kind of piece together. That unpacks like, so chapter 1, we're doing like Yeshua, Michael, Samael, and Azrael. And so out of those 4, we want to tell the story of when Jesus dies, where does Jesus go? And so Jesus would then go to Sheol. And so in Sheol, he then has an encounter with Samael and Azrael, who are holding the keys. So it is an actual key that we've designed, that they are holding these keys of dominion. And he's going in and he's going to take the keys and then go back. And so it's like telling the story of that first chapter is telling the story of him in Sheol and having this conflict with these 2 Elohim that are there. And then so future chapters again will be doing some of the Egyptian gods and then doing some of the Norse and Greek. We've even got like a list for Gilgamesh and Achilles and some of these other what are they, like the demigods and kind of
I assume you have
Goliath and
I
his
assume
brothers.
you have the dictionary of demons and deities handy somewhere.
So I was able to get a copy from our library. I actually had the person at the library is someone that goes to our church. And she knows I'm a little crazy. And so I asked her, I'm like, hey, do you have this at the library or can you get it?
You get it.
It's an
and
expensive
she's like,
book.
Oh, it's very expensive. So I did something that I probably shouldn't admit on the air. So we got the book, like we got it in the library. I had it for 3 days and I photocopied basically every page that I could. I was spending hours a day photocopying. Yeah. So I've got like a stack of papers like this big. I didn't get all the way through the book, but I got like the big important ones. So yeah, like I have it, but not really.
Yeah, it's incredible how thick that is and useful that is for those things. And I try to show my son, like they find so many of these names or what you're going to find in many of these like Dungeons and Dragons and all these kinds of things like that, the Warcrafts and things that exist within the world. You're going to find those. Like there was another guy that, we talked to as well that was trying to put together sort of a Divine Council Worldview game like that. And I was like, man, that is a great idea.
Yeah.
All right. So these figures, I mean, what size are they going to be like? Like I was buying my 1980 Star Wars characters.
No. So these, we're going to have 2 different lines. The first line that we're producing, they are going to be like within the collector's market. So they're going to be 9-inch figures. They're going to be 9 inches tall, fully articulated with like 21 points of articulation. No accessories. We've got some really cool like swords and stuff that we're designing. And also they're going to have soft goods. So like Yeshua will actually have like a robe that goes around his waist and then a hooded robe that you can put on. So I mean, like these things they are very much meant to, you pose them and put them on your shelf and brag about them. That's exactly what this first wave is all about.
Any like jetpacks or lightsabers, anything like that?
The lightsaber side of it, we do have a style weapon that we are calling Divine Light. That it is similar to that. It looks more like a sword instead of just a cylinder. Mm-hmm. So it is something that like they carry the hilt, and then when they go to engage in battle, it basically ignites this massive blade. So it is like a blue light blade that comes out of it. So yeah, we do have some of those.
I was just kidding, but you're all in.
Yeah, we'll take it.
Yeah, man, we're all in, man. Yeah.
Are you working on this story like yourself? Do you have other people joining and helping you? How are you going about that?
The majority of the content, like the story, I'm writing a lot of it. I am having a few people people that are familiar with writing and know like, hey, there are certain faux pas you don't want to do when you write. So they're kind of like reviewing some of the stuff that I've been writing and kind of just cleaning stuff up. I do have 2 other employees that are helping with the prototyping and like the painting. The one guy is also helping with doing some of the 3D sculpting. There is another company that we're working with out of New Jersey. That they're a fairly large toy company. It's 4 Horsemen Studios. Shout out to you guys. I love you guys. yeah, so they're helping with some of our sculpting and making sure like all the joints are working correctly. Making sure that, when we go to like 3D print these things, that's, everything's actually going to be functional and things are sized proportionally correct. And so like they've been absolutely huge in helping us get these things taken care of and actually sculpted so they work. So yeah, we definitely have some people that are along for the ride.
That's awesome.
Okay. Yeah, because these things are going to there's no one in the States, right, that is able to print these figures, right?
So the printing part, I'm printing them here at the house. Like we have 3D printers, so we're doing
okay
here. Now
nice.
The production side of it, getting like the plastic molds and stuff like that made. There's no one in the U.S. that we can do it through affordably.
Okay.
There are like one or two companies that we can do it with in the States, but it would completely sink us financially to do it.
$45 per character.
Yeah, it would be an astronomical amount. And so the unfortunate side of that is that we are going to have to go overseas to have these things mass produced. That's kind of the downside to the toy industry right now, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. That's where the cheap plastics
Nobody
are
minds.
done. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's where it is.
They're going to look cool at the end of the product.
Yeah,
so
that's it. That's all we want,
And who knows?
Maybe
someone in those foreign factories will kind of ask and look about, well, what's this about?
Yeah.
And find
that'd be great.
Out,
that'd be so much fun to start hearing stories like that come up. I would love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as well, we should let everybody know that, Jeff will also be at the Image Conference with us. So this episode should come out a couple of weeks before that. So when you see him there, come say hello. Also, Jeff, at the end of it, we'd like to record a little bit of 10-minute, 15-minute of what you thought about it. Did you, who you met, how did it go, and what did you think? If that's all right, so that when we see you there. All right.
I'm going to meet everybody I can. Like you said, I'm an extrovert. I'm going to meet everybody.
All three of us right here are going to be like, talk, to meet as much as we can. Well, I just wanted to thank everybody for joining us today. I thank you so much, Jeff, for doing this, for being patient. I know we've been talking for a while, and we finally were able to get to this. We'll let you all know when these things start, Kickstarter and things like that. But we just really appreciate your time, appreciate your heart, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks,
thank
Jeff.
you for having me on, man. Thank you so much. This has been fun.
Yeah, it was real fun. Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.